In this video, I'm going to show you how adjustment layers in Photoshop work. And when I say adjustment layers, I want to talk about image correction tools like exposure, levels, HueSaturation, and black and white. These are image correction tools that you would most probably use all the time. Years ago, we used to go to the image menu and there choose the adjustment commands like levels, exposure, and so on. Nowadays, we don't do it like that. We use adjustment layers. They are much more versatile. The same tools come as layers, which do the same correction, but also can be treated as normal layers. So it makes everything more convenient for you. Also the ability to change things afterwards. Now let's first of all try to enhance the contrast of this image. Levels. You might as well use curves. It's probably the more professional tool, but levels is easier to handle for architects. So let's stick to that. Now you see there's a layer showing up. The default doesn't do anything, but we can, for example, move this slider to the right and we see that the dark parts get darker. Now we can also move the right slider to the left in order to brighten up the bright parts. And as you can see, you have some kind of diagram. It's called a histogram. It's showing the distribution of pixels over the black to white scale. In this case, this would mean that we don't have any black parts in our image and also no dark gray parts. And the darkest pixels are something around here, which is a below average gray, but it is not actually black. So when we move the slider over to this beginning of this histogram, we see that the darker parts get really black. We can also do this for each color channel, like red. You see, looks a little bit different, so we can move the slider over here and do this in every color channel. And as you can see in the green channel, for example, the bright parts are missing very much, so we can move it somewhere to this position. And in the blue channel, again, it looks a little bit different, so when we do it like this, you see the contrast has efficiently been enhanced. You can also move the middle slider to brighten up the respective channel. In this case, it's the blue channel, so we can lighten it up a little bit. And we can also play around with the other ones and see what happens. Now, I don't say that this correction tool must be used in this kind of image, but this is just a very good example for showing you how this level tool works. Now, as we did this by using an adjustment layer, we can switch this layer off and you see the original version of your brick wall, and now you see the corrected version. Now let's go to another adjustment layer. Let's use the HueSaturation. This is something that you most probably would use to reduce the intensity of colors. Now, as you can see, it's again adding another layer and it's presenting you with its own set of adjustments in the properties panel. And here, first of all, you can reduce the overall saturation. So you turn it into a grayscale image effectively, or you can enhance the saturation, set this one to 0 again, and try to see how the color channels react. So now, for example, you could reduce the saturation for the red channel. This means the reds are getting grayer, but the other colors pretty much stay the same. We not only have the red, green, and blue channels up here, but also yellow, cyan, and magenta. So, for example, the blues consists of more than only blue, so we can also reduce the cyan. And now you see it's getting grayer in the blue parts, even more so. You can also change the overall hue, of course. For example, you could, let's take the reds again. You can change the red parts of your image to another color by doing this. For example, doing something like this. Or here. Now there's another thing that is pretty useful for you. You can change a color image into a grayscale image. In earlier days we used this command image mode turn to grayscale. This would have changed our image to a grayscale image permanently. Nowadays we take the adjustment layer black and white, which sounds a little bit misleading because it's actually changing our color image into a grayscale image. Now what you can see, actually this is a kind of average transformation. This deals with different colors pretty much the same way, meaning our red and blue and other colors look pretty much the same gray. In the properties panel you can see that there are color sliders, and actually what this does, it brightens up the respective colors, like for example the red. When you move the slider to the right, the red gets white, and of course the other direction means it gets black. As this brick wall is pretty colorful, each of these sliders is producing significant visual results. Most often times you don't have the patience to play around with these sliders, so you stick to the presets. For example, the high contrast red filter, which turns the red bricks into white, and the complementary, or rather complementary direction would mean the red bricks turn into black. Play around with these presets. The green filter is actually this average, boring initial algorithm that we saw in the beginning. Try for yourself. Each image demands for some different settings, of course. I would like to present you with the final tool in this video, and it's the exposure. And of course, this is meant to enhance exposure or reduce it. So this is pretty straightforward. One last thing. The HueSaturation adjustment layer allows for another effect. When you switch on the adjustment layers, you can use the HueSaturation adjustment layer for coloring this image. The only thing you have to do is to check colorize, and now you can give your image this two-tone coloring effect. Okay,